Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Nadie and welcome back to another episode of, I don't know what we're calling this yet. I feel like we're gonna be like 5 or 6 episodes deep before we have a true sticking name. But we're basically telling short stories of things that actually happened that kind of make you wonder, like, what the fuck is life? You know, they make you question everything. There's gonna be talks of UFOs, of big monsters, and this stuff happened all around the world too. So yeah, if you have any suggestions of names, please drop them down below. If you have a really good name and I don't say it yet, I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to get my feet with these and just ride this baby out until it feels nice and natural. Ooh. But anyways, my little polka dotted pinkies, how you doing today? I hope wherever you're at in the world, you're just having a great day so far. I myself am doing wonderful. I'm here still knitting away. I'm very excited because I'm going out of town soon. I've been super sick for almost this entire year, and this trip has honestly kind of kept me alive. So I'm really excited for it. But I'm also excited for this new series. So let's dive right into it, shall we? So our first story today has to do with an iron masked man. Oh, sounds sensual, right? I mean, it could have been, but it probably wasn't. I don't know, anything can be sexy if you try hard enough. But do y'all remember in like 1998 when Leonardo DiCaprio's skin was still tight and he was just this little twink floating around from movie to movie? Me too. Now, remember that movie he was in called, I think it was The Man Behind the Iron Mask? No, you don't? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It really didn't have the best reviews. Maybe you did hear of it, I don't know. But either way, it was actually based on a true story. And that movie wasn't the only depiction of this mystery ironclad man either. Since this happened in the late 1600s, people have been writing about it, making plays and movies, and it even has historical studies. Yet despite all the popularity around this mystery daddy behind the mask, the identity is still unsolved. Was he a beast or was he too gorgeous for human eyes? So beautiful that people's pants would just soak and their eyes would bulge from their head? Or maybe he was just a normal guy that was forced to wear a mask. Well, long before this Iron Poppy died, there was so much gossip on him. He was the talk of the town. His identity was kind of like Clark Kent. Like, people just wanted to know who this man was, damn it. What people did know was that this guy had been imprisoned at the request of King Louis XIV, the King of France at the time. For some reason, good old Louis wanted this specific prisoner to wear a mask and hide who he was from the rest of the chained up dungeon folk. The earliest record of the Iron Man was way the hell back in 1669, so this is like an old story. This case has been around for a while. It's like a bad case of chlamydia at the nursing home that just won't fucking go away. But I guess a letter was sent from Louis to the governor of a big-ass prison in France. It clearly stated that they'd soon be getting a prisoner who was in no way fabulous and should basically be treated like moldy ground beef, but he'd require a cell with double doors in case anyone was listening in, which, bitch, I'd be belting out show tunes all day at the top of my lungs if nobody could hear me. But I guess he'd also only get like 1 meal a day, which was the only human interaction he'd have. I don't know, I'm really not seeing any negatives with this so far. This sounds kind of like a nice vacation. But the prisoner was just very limited with what he could do. Needless to say, his supply of lotion ran out rather quickly, if you know what I'm saying. But to top off these bastardly rules, if at any point the prisoner spoke when he wasn't spoken to, he was to immediately be beheaded. Like, how rude, right? Well, I guess this specific prison was to house all of the men the king considered to be an embarrassment. Oh, you laughed at the king when he was attempting to twerk near a suckling pig? Prison. You think seeing the king's dirty lace front is hilarious? Prison. And apparently this little prison, though harsh and brutal, only housed a few men at a time. People like an Italian diplomat who screwed France out of a sale of a fortress, and a former superintendent of finances who apparently embezzled from the king and purchased a lovely vacation chateau and a set of pool boys, and even a man who had courted the king's cousin without his consent. Gay gasp! Yes, you heard that right, without his consent. Sounds a bit presumptuous that they wanted his consent in the first place. Someone's making up an ego what they lack in their undergarments, I'm sure. This prison, though, they did have a reputation to keep. I guess it was known for kind of its shitty way of life. It was cold, secluded, it was bleak, and probably felt the exact same as having to sit next to your homophobic great aunt at Christmas dinner. This place was supposedly scary, though, mainly because the king was directly connected with it, and we know whatever the fuck the king wants, that's how it goes. No visitors, no contact with any other inmates, no books, no music, no exercise, and often no fresh air for the entirety of the sentence. Yikes, right? Like, they were basically grounded for life with no chance of making toilet wine. Now Louis, he was a bit much to say the least. Like all crazy politicians, he had a massive amount of support and Kool-Aid drinkers, and his followers literally thought he was sent from the heavens to rule as he saw fit. And it is true that while under his power, France had grown in size and in structure, but the ones that despised him really hated his ass. And can you blame them? Sticking people in prison for mysterious reasons? One prison guard wrote in a memoir about the curious masked man saying he never took it off and his name was purposefully never pronounced properly. Oh my god, I know how that feels when people call me naughty. I mean, I am naughty, but that's not my name. Imagine how oily the masked man's face must have been, but also imagine how much mala he saved on skincare. But it was with this prison guard that was writing in his little diary that the masked man ended up dying with. Immediately, the Iron Man was buried with an unmarked gravestone in the name of Marchiali, I think that's how you say it. All of his shit was burned, his clothes, his furniture, his cell was whitewashed, and all of his metal possessions other than the helmet that he was buried with was melted down. I heard the metal was then turned into those rings that you get in those 50-cent machines at like Walmart. He'd apparently been in his 50s, which I guess was kind of old for then, but what was also weird was that he'd been sentenced almost 40 years prior. So he was very young when he'd pissed the king off and had that mask on for literal ages, like decades. Like skin fused to metal kind of long. Can that happen? Because I know when people are on a couch too long, they kind of fuse with the fabric. But also, did he have a beard under that mask? Like so many questions. But then over the years, other sources have come up depicting a completely different story for the guy. For example, you know Voltaire, the philosopher with extremely good hair straight out of a Pantene commercial? Well, he too just happened to be imprisoned at the same location of the mystery man decades after the Iron Masked Man's death. And one of the guards was just spilling the tea on this dude. First of all, it was Voltaire that even suggested the mask was made out of iron in the first place. But the guard was like, oh honey, no. The mask was made out of cloth, much like the velvet ones worn by women to protect them from the sun. Voltaire's flipping his hair like, what? Do tell, please. Like, was this guard just covering up the abuse that this poor man endured? Or did he really just have to wear a velvet mask? Like, we went through that for a couple of years. It's not that bad. But apparently this masked man had a majestic height, had a young and virile body, and from the neck down seemed like a graceful, noble figure. Everyone's just doing jello shots off the masked man's abs. Sounds kind of hot, right? The guards had assumed this guy came from money and wealth and was kind of regal because he had a refined manner and was a pro guitar player. So, sounds like he's good with his fingers, which sounds good to me. I don't know, I just don't see anything wrong with this guy so far. But unlike what a lot of people think, he was supposedly given the finest of foods despite still being kept from other prisoners, which is a far cry from the stories where he was basically served maggots and chained up in a basement. Like, how bad could it have been if he was allowed a guitar? Still though, nobody truly knows the facts. People speculate that maybe the masked man was King Louis's older illegitimate brother. Could his mother have had a passionate and steamy love affair with a notable cardinal from across town? And in order to not besmirch the family name, was the brother then locked up in luxury with a mask put over his face because he resembled the king? Another theory is that the king had an identical twin brother and this is who wore the mask. And that would make sense because they wouldn't be able to figure out which brother should be heir to the crown, so they picked one and locked up the other. Or did they take turns wearing the mask and share the ruling? One last theory is that this was in fact King Louis's son, which I think honestly makes the most sense because of his age. King Louis was born in like 1638 and the masked man was said to be around 50 when he died in 1703. He'd been held in prison for 34-ish years, which means he was around 16 at the time of capture and would have been born around 1653. This would have made the king around 15 or so when he'd had the masked man, which isn't too far off for the time. People got down and dirty pretty early then. And King Louis's known son had been banished from the kingdom for being gay, and he tried to regain the family's love by fighting in a war and allegedly died in the battle. But what if that was just a cover-up and the king actually took his son back in, imprisoning him in the most secluded prison there was? But that would kind of explain the mask and the lack of the name, because the son was a public figure. He'd have been recognized by his face, voice, name, and everything. But what do you think? Was it a royal family member or just someone who royally pissed the king off? You're outside, you're enjoying the starry night sky, and maybe your back porch light is on, and suddenly you're pummeled with a dozen big juicy moths attracted to the light like moths to a flame. Well, imagine seeing that big juicy moth in the sky except 100 times bigger and part man. Sure, you're wondering if he's single, and more importantly, which part of him is man, but what you should be wondering is, what the fuck is this? Well, let's take it back to the evening of November 12th in 1966 when Kenny and his 4 friends were digging a grave for his brother-in-law. You know, just a casual thing that we've all done more than once. They're passing beers around trying to make the best out of a shitty situation when all the damn sudden a brown human being flew above their heads. They were confused as to whether or not their West Virginia moonshine was hitting them or if they were really seeing this shit. But nope, all 5 men were watching a human with wings gliding through the trees like a wannabe Batman for a solid minute. According to the fellas, this was a bird-like man with bright red glowing eyes and a wingspan of like 10 feet. 10 feet, you know what they say about shoe size? I wonder if it's the same for wingspan. The guys just assumed they were crazy and vowed to never mix liquor and beer again until 3 days later when word trickled down the grapevine that 2 other couples saw the exact same figure. Well, these folks said whatever the hell this was just hovering in the night sky above a place the town blew up TNT, and they were like, no, we aren't drunk, and no, we're not high. Also, you may or may not see my kitty cat floating around here somewhere. Where the hell are you? Come here. I feed you, you love me. Oh yes, baby. Say hi, Mia. Oh yes. You wanna say hello? Uh-huh. My name's Mia and I am obese. Oh, yes. Oh. Alright, go eat some more. And these people also said this wasn't like any monster or character they'd ever seen on TV. This was real and animalistic, but still human. The 2 couples had been sitting in one of the guys' cars smooching the wives when, plain as day, there was a 7-foot tall creature with like a 10-foot wingspan. And most noticeable of all, the glowing red eyes. Oh, creepy. This creature landed like 3 times, stood upright like a human, and then took off and circled the area. And this little bitch was fast too. They estimated that it was cruising at least around 100 miles an hour. It's like a fucking flying ostrich, damn. Obviously, the couples just shat themselves from fright and started the car and drove away like a bat out of hell. But as they were zooming along, it was flying above the car like it wanted to lift the car off the road. And then when the couple went to the police, there was nothing to be found for miles. The police assumed the couples had been hitting the bong too hard and just ignored them, chalking it up to a bad prank. Well, boy, did the officers get their titties in a twist when they heard about another sighting not but 100 miles away. A farmer had seen a big-ass man-bat just flying around and landed in his field. Of course, this was at night because everything scary happens at night. But the farmer dude shone his light in the field and saw big red eyes staring back at him. And his good boy Gerald the German Shepherd went to go investigate and never returned. Like, that is the saddest part of the story. Then a few days later, firemen were at that TNT site where the couple saw the creature, and they saw it too. For a whole year from 1966 to 67, the Point Pleasant area of West Virginia kept seeing what seemed to be a cross between a moth, a bird, and a man, and they kind of grew to embrace the legend. Oh god, speaking of moths, where the fuck did you go? It's just a little tiny bug. Well, now there's an entire Mothman festival every September where people from around the world travel to the TNT site. There's a 12-foot statue, a Mothman pizza, a Mothman frappuccino, but the superstitious still see the Mothman as a bad omen rather than a good legend, mainly because in 1967, a bridge all the way up in Ohio collapsed, killing 46 people. The cause was allegedly a defective bar that had cracked, but quite a few people blame it on the red-eyed birdman creature they saw just before the collapse. But after that, the Mothman really wasn't seen anymore, so some people think that maybe he was there to warn people rather than cause despair. So what do you think? Was the Mothman real? I mean, a lot of people are doubtful, especially because the TNT area where the Mothman was first spotted was surrounded by a bird sanctuary full of big-ass owls. Everyone who'd seen the creature said it had red eyes, and when you shine a light in a lot of owls' eyes, they're bright red. In fact, someone shot down what they had believed to be the Mothman, and it turned out to be a giant snowy owl, which is now stuffed and put on display. What was weirder was that after the shooting, there were no more recorded sightings of Mothman. Others, like wildlife biologists in the area, believe that Mothman wasn't an owl, but was actually a sandhill crane, which has a wingspan of like 7 feet and doesn't have bright red eyeballs, but has red lines around the eyes. I don't really understand how anyone could think that either of those birds have human attributes, but in the heat of the moment, the mind plays fucked up games, right? But what do you think? Was it a monstrous flying creature or just a bird? Maybe we'll never know, but it's just a reminder to always question everything. Anyways, my loves, there we go. Just a little brain food for your noggin to gnaw on. And thank you so much for being here and just chilling and knitting with me. I love doing this so damn much. If you have any mysterious stories you'd recommend, please comment them down below. I always am curious. And if you want just a little bit more Nady in your life, head over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Poplux. You get videos a day early, you get Patreon only content, and and best part, it's cheap, fun, and fancy, just like me. And don't forget, my Repop glosses are available at repopcosmetics.com. Comment down below, let me know what you thought of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at officialnady, and you can follow me online at thepoplux.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you again soon. Bye!